Please open your Bibles with me to 1 Samuel chapter 8. 1 Samuel chapter 8. We're doing a Bible survey, and so we're trying to do a high-level look at the key components of our Bibles and how various books fit together, the themes, overview of the themes, and so on. It's very difficult for me to do this. You get down in the weeds and want to read every verse, and then it becomes very technical and lecture-like instead of preaching. But I'm trying. And so last week we looked at the bulk of Samuel's life. A reminder that basically from Joshua to Kings is basically chronological in order. You have the children of Israel taking over the promised land. You have the battles that they win, the battles that they lose, and so on. And you transition into the time of the judges, and there were 7 cycles of disobedience that Israel went through under several judges, and Samuel is the last of one of those judges. Samuel will be the last judge. Samuel is also a prophet. Remember, Samuel was the gift of God to Hannah as she prayed in her barrenness and promised to dedicate a child unto the Lord. The Lord gave her this child, and she did. Samuel would see Saul's reign, the most of it. He died during Saul's reign. I made the comment last time we were looking at the Bible survey that Samuel would see David reign. David was chosen by God and anointed, but he had not ascended to the throne before Samuel died. So I misspoke on that. There was one listening that heard that and questioned me, and that was good to be questioned. Iron sharpens iron. And I went back and looked at my notes and looked at how I probably said it, and I did say it incorrectly. Samuel is written in 1st and 2nd Samuel is written in painful honesty. I said this last time. It argues for God-inspired authorship of the Scriptures, because there'd be a lot of things in 1st and 2nd Samuel that we'd like to gloss over, but God doesn't. And it's there for our learning. Kings is written with a political emphasis. Chronicles is written with a spiritual heritage emphasis, and all have their place. I kind of view them somewhat like the Gospels, where they have differing information, not differing in the sense of contrasting, but both bringing pieces of information to light, or all bringing pieces of information to light. So last week, as I said, we were in Cadillac. 2 weeks ago, as we did the Bible survey, we looked at the bulk of Samuel's life. And today we'll look at the bulk of Saul's life, which will consume about 7 chapters. And we plan to read every word of every chapter. No, we don't. In chapter 8, we'll read the most out of the beginning and the end, and just try to grab a few snapshots in the middle. Remember, the state of Israel is in rough shape. It came to pass when I'm in 1 Samuel 8:1. It came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of the first was Joel, the name of the second Abiah, and they were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes, and perverted judgment. His sons were ungodly. They were not following in Samuel's heritage, and they will be the end of the line in many ways. The people start to clamor for a king. Chapter 8 and verses 4 through 6. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us, like all the nations. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. That's exactly what you would have expected with a godly man. When the thing displeased him, the thing seemed to him to be the wrong request, he made his prayer unto God immediately. God's reply, verses 7 through 9. The Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. According to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me and served other gods, so do they also unto thee. Now therefore hearken unto their voice, howbeit yet protest solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. This gives some people pause that God's not in favor of it, but he's going to allow it. And you're dealing with the perfect will of God versus the permissive will of God every day that humanity is in existence. A perfect example of the perfect will of God and the permissive will of God is Joseph of the Old Testament, Jesus at the cross, where wicked men did what they did and they're culpable for it, they're responsible for it. But God uses that to bring about his determined end result. And he's going to do that in this case as he does in every case. So Samuel, listen to what they say. Go ahead, give them what they want, but protest. Tell them what the king is going to be like. Tell them what they're doing wrong, that you've not rejected me. Samuel can say, you haven't rejected me. You've rejected God. But God's going to allow it for a purpose. And so he tells them in verse 9, show them what manner of king that shall reign over them. And if you look down through verses 10 through 18, it's a constant barrage of, and he shall take, and he shall take, and he will take. He's going to take your sons. He's going to take your daughters. He's going to take your money. He's going to take, verse 13, your daughters. He will take your fields, verse 14, your vineyards. He will take 1/10 of your seed, verse 15. He will take your men servants and your maid servants. Do you recognize what it's going to cost you to have this man reign as king? In my place, God could say, I'm the king, and I've delivered you out of the hand of Pharaoh and over into the promised land. And now that the line of judges seems to have come to an end, you want a king. And you've rejected me in the process. So Samuel tells him what it's going to be like to have a king. Verses 19 and 20. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, Nay, but we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. There's a terrible dichotomy in the people of God saying, we want to be like everybody else. There's still a terrible dichotomy in that the people of God look more and more to emulate the world the world's standards, the world's priorities, and all of those things. That's exactly what they were doing. We want to be like all the nations. Verse 21, Samuel heard all the words of the people and rehearsed them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, hearken unto their voice, and make them a king, Samuel. And Samuel said unto the men of Israel, go ye every man unto his city. Jehovah had been their king. Jehovah had gone and fought their battles. They have rejected Jehovah. They have rejected not Samuel, ultimately, but Jehovah. Now we start picking through a couple of chapters till we get to the end of Saul's ultimate downfall. Chapter 9 and verse 2, there was a man, verse 2 says, and he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward he was higher than any of the people. Saul was a man's man. Doesn't say godly, by the way. It says goodly. He was a man's man. God was about to give them what they wanted. And they wanted to look like all the other nations around them. And they began to make their choices like all the other nations around them would make their choice. Not looking for the godly man. Not looking for the man God would have to be their king. Not yet. But looking at who's the tallest, the strongest, the one that will yield the most respect. 15 through 17. Now the Lord had told Samuel in his ear a day before Saul came, saying, tomorrow about this time I will send thee a man out of the land of Benjamin, and thou shalt anoint him to be captain over my people Israel, that he may save my people out of the hand of the Philistines. For I have looked upon my people, because of their cry has come unto me. And when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said unto him, behold, the man whom I spake to thee of, this same shall reign over my people. So Samuel is beginning to, well, he's not beginning, but Samuel knows who God has offered them to be king over Israel. And in verse 21, Saul's response is very important. It has a lot of bearing in something Samuel will say to Saul at the end of his reign. Verse 21, and Saul answered and said, am not I a Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my family the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Wherefore then speakest thou to me? You'll notice that Saul is a bit taken back by this. Saul is humble. Saul is, as Samuel will say it later, little in his own sight. And Saul starts off relatively good, but he goes downhill fast. Remember, God told Samuel to solemnly plead with the people. Well, smattered through here several times, there's a smattering of that pleading. Chapter 10, verses 17 through 19. He gave them Saul. He gave them what they wanted. But he continues to have Samuel hold their feet to the fire. Chapter 10, verses 17 through 19. And Samuel called the people together unto the Lord to Mizpah, and said unto the children of Israel, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought Israel out of Egypt and delivered you into the hand of the Egyptian, or out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all the kingdoms, and of them that oppressed you. And ye have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversities and your tribulations. And you have said unto him, Nay, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. Samuel is still pleading with them. And the Lord is reminding them, I've been your king. I've been your defender. I've been the one charging you into battle, charging with you into battle when you obey my voice. And yet you've rejected me. Chapter 11, Saul rises up to defend Israel from Nahash. And there's a glimmer of hope in chapter 11. In verse 15, after that, in chapter 11 and verse 15, and the people went out to Gilgal, and they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. And there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord. And there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. Things don't look too bad. Things start out kind of all right. Remember what Saul's attitude was. You're choosing me? From the little tribe of Benjamin, and my family's even a little family in that little tribe? We're not one of the movers and shakers. We're not one of the rich and famous. You're picking me? And he starts out relatively okay. Chapter 12, verses 12 through 15. Samuel's charge to the people. And when ye saw that Nahash, the king of the children of Ammon, came against you, you said unto me, Nay, but a king shall reign over us, when the Lord your God was your king. Now therefore, behold the king whom ye have chosen, and whom you have desired. And behold, the Lord hath set a king over you. You got what you asked for. If you will fear the Lord and serve him and obey his voice, and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall both ye and also the king that reigneth over you continue following the Lord your God. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall the hand of the Lord be against you, as it was against your fathers. Samuel continues to plead with the people and charge the people and say, you got what you asked for. Now, with him, serve the Lord. The Lord will be with you. Chapter 13, we're just at the beginning of Saul's official reign, starting in verse 8. We're picking up in a little bit of a thought, but I'm trying not to read the entire section. And he tarried 7 days, according to the time set that Samuel had appointed. That is, Saul is tarrying, and Samuel had appointed a time. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Saul said, now Samuel's supposed to be there. Samuel hasn't yet arrived. Saul says, bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering, took it upon himself to do that. Samuel's instructions had been, wait for me. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, what hast thou done? And Saul said, because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. And Samuel said unto Saul, thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. Saul's really just getting started. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. And the Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart. And the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. So we find that Saul, in his actions, things go downhill rather rapidly. Whereas he started out and he was a bit taken back. You're picking me, you're choosing me? And to the point where he goes ahead and takes it upon himself to go around Samuel and make this offering and so on. Samuel prophesies against him at that point. Samuel prophesies that he will be removed, the kingdom will be taken from him. Chapter 14 is just more downhill, impulsive, and self-centered behavior for Saul. Now we want to spend a little time in chapter 15. It's probably one of the more familiar chapters. In chapter 15, we start out, as so many times we start out, the direct command of God. It's not ambiguous. It's not, you don't have to parse the words and figure out what he means. Don't take anything alive. And Saul doesn't listen. Samuel said unto Saul, okay, I'm in chapter 15 and verse 1. The Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people and over Israel. Now therefore hearken unto the voice of the words of the Lord. You're the king. You're the one in charge. You're the one responsible. Listen to what God says. You're the one culpable, the one going to be held accountable. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, spare them not, but slay both man, woman, infant, suckling, ox, and sheep, and camel, and ass. Leave nothing alive. Now this is hard scriptures for us to wrap our brains around, but it is what God told Saul to do. So we know kind of the Paul Harvey rest of the story, starting in verse 9. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refuse, that they utterly destroyed. They didn't obey. They didn't hearken. And Samuel reminded him, you've been anointed king. You're the one responsible. You're leading this country now, and the direction you take them and the actions they take under you will be your responsibility. So listen closely to my not cryptic message. Don't save anything alive. But Saul, verse 9, and the people spared Agag, the king, and the other things listed. Verse 10, then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying, it repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king. Now that gives some people pause. God changed his mind? No, God didn't change his mind. The Bible is written in a way that ascribes human attributes to deity so that we can understand the mind of God. He never has been in favor of Saul being king, but he was doing something bigger behind the scenes, and the secret things belong unto the Lord. But he never said, this will be a good fit. Let's have Saul to do this, and then, Saul failed. I changed my mind. I don't like. It's never been like that. From the beginning of Saul's reign, from the beginning of introducing Saul, we were headed to a man after God's own heart, which Saul wasn't. We were headed to a David and a reign of David. And so the Bible is not ascribing change to the one who never changes. The Bible is describing his viewpoint of what's going on, we might say. Sometimes I explain it this way. God's face is as a flint, setting straight forward. If we're in his line of sight, obeying and doing well, his favor, generally speaking, is upon those that fear him and obey him. We move out of that position and move into a position of foolishness and sin and folly and disrespect and rebellion. His face is set against us. Who's changed? Not God, but the one in the line of sight. And it's being described as, it repented me. What verse? Verse 11. It repented me that I have set up Saul to be king. We see the same thing in Genesis chapter 6. It repented the Lord that he'd made man. He knew from the foundation of the world that that was going to take place. But so that we could understand the mindset of God, it's written with some human character. Deity is written with some human characteristics. So God lets it be known that to Samuel that Saul is not going to be the king much longer. And it grieved Samuel at the end of verse 11. He cried all night. When Samuel arose to meet Saul in the morning, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set him up a place, and is gone about, and is passed on, and is gone down to Gilgal. And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, Blessed be thou of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. And he thought he had, I think. He was told not to spare anything alive. And I've done what I was told to do, Samuel. And Samuel says, verse 14, many messages have been built on this. What meaneth then the bleating of these sheep in mine ears, and the lowing of the oxen which I hear? If you have done what you were told, why do I hear sheep? Why do I hear oxen? If you had done what you were told, nothing would remain alive. What have you done? That's what he said to him in chapter, 13 or so. What have you done? Had a boss at the hotel said that to me all the time. What have you done? And that's what Samuel said to Saul. Starting in verse 17. And Samuel said, when thou wast little in thine own sight. Remember where we started? Saul saying, you picking me? And Samuel took him back in chapter 15, verse 17. When thou wast little in thine own sight, wast thou not made the head of the tribes of Israel, and the Lord anointed thee king over Israel? Saul, what has happened? When you were little in your own sight, when you were humble before the Lord, you had a decent start. You saved Israel from Nahash, was it? Nahash, yes. And now you're going to be removed from office. The rest of this chapter is Samuel telling Saul, you're going to be removed from office. Your children will be rejected. God's looking for a man after his own heart. I'm not sure what verse it is. I believe it's in this passage. Look at verse 26. And Samuel said unto Saul, I will not return to thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king over Israel. And Samuel turned about to go away, and he laid hold of his skirt and mantle and rent it. And Samuel said unto the Lord, and Samuel said unto him, the Lord hath rent the kingdom of Israel from thee this day, and hath given it to a neighbor of thine that is better than thou. Samuel is very plain with Saul. You have had the kingdom torn from you, and it's going to be given to a man after God's own heart. Even his lineage is blocked from serving. The life of Saul is kind of a case study in making your way through the biblical tension that there properly is between the perfect will of God, thus saith the Lord, and the permissive will of God, I will have my way, even in the whirlwind. The case in point that makes the point most succinctly is in Peter's message. He told the Pharisees it was the determinate counsel and foreknowledge of God that you put Christ on the cross, but you did it with wicked hands. Reminding them that they're culpable, reminding them that they're responsible. Saul was culpable and responsible. And yet, nothing happened outside God's will, even in all of Saul's failure and disobedience. It reminds me, and I'll close with this, it reminds me of Psalm 76:10. Surely the wrath of man will praise thee. The remainder of wrath thou shalt restrain. In other words, even in the wrathful disobedience of man, it will work around to the end that it brings praise unto God, or he won't allow it. And that's true in Saul's life. All of these things are moving to a place where a man after God's own heart will be the king over Israel. Israel will have learned some lessons, and they will transition into the zenith of the kingdom through David, and then his son Solomon will be the greatest period of time for the kingdom of Israel in that time frame. Not the greatest period of time for Israel ever. That's yet to come. That's yet to come. When King Jesus rules and reigns. Let's stand.